Started. Welcome to today's Apex office hours. My name is Marc Sewtz. I'm Senior Director of Software Development for Oracle Apex. I'm based in New York. I've been with the Apex team for about 20 years now. Today we're going to talk about Apex 23.1, our upcoming release. You can get in touch with me. Here's my email and my Twitter handle. As I'm sure most of you have seen, we've upgraded apexoracle.com to Apex 23.1 on Tuesday this week. So you can all go and try out Apex 23.1 today. There's one minor hiccup going on right now, temporarily disabled workspace provisioning. So if you're trying to create a new workspace, that's going to be coming back very soon. If you do have a workspace, you should be able to just log into your workspace and try out Apex 23.1. There was another hiccup with resetting password that should have been resolved. So you should be able to get your passwords reset if you had any trouble getting in. There's a blog post. I included a QR code here and a link to the blog post that talks about the new release. So take a look at that. And then we also updated our apex.oracle.com static homepage with a new features page that talks about all the new features coming in much detail. We're going to add a number of videos, short demonstrations of all these new features over the coming days and weeks. A few videos are already available, so take a look at that page and keep visiting that page to see more demo videos. Today I'm going to give a general update about all the new features. I do a few short demos of the new object browser and secret level web integration, but we're also going to have a few deep dive sessions over the next coming weeks. Starting next week, next Thursday, same time, with what's new in Apex 23.1 Part 2. Andrea, Vincent, and Zolt are going to talk about save and run from code editor, copying pages directly from the Create Page Wizard, the new admin digest in instant administration, and the new declarative push notifications for PWAs. Then the week after that, on May 4th, we're going to have Paige, Dahlia, and Menno talk about the new template components, updates to the Universal theme, and the ability to upload themes and theme styles from ThemeRoller directly. And then on May 11th, we're going to have part 4. Carsten and Peter Wagenesh are going to talk about background execution of page processes, invoking APIs for REST data services, REST source discovery based on Swagger and OpenAPI, then context-sensitive help in the builder, and the extension of plugin attributes. Also, next week, we're going to have an Apex office hours in Spanish. Carlos, Leonardo, Dalia, and Monica are going to cover Apex 23.1 new features in that session as well. All right, let's go through a few updates and announcements before we get into new features. We always talk about our team growth over the last 2 or 3 years. We've been growing quite a bit. The last year, we kind of slowed down a little bit, but we did acquire Forex. So I just want to highlight that. There are lots of new team members, mainly in Austria, also in Finland. So lots of new team members who joined us from Forex and who are working with us on our CERN activities as well as Apex core development. A lot of the new features in Apex 23.1, they already had their hands in. So great having them on board. We also continue having in-person conferences again. We already had a bunch last year. This year, I think we are really back to full strength. The first one, or one of the first ones 3 weeks ago, was Apex World in Zeist in the Netherlands. I had the pleasure to go there with Menno and Andrea and Christian Rocketa and Anton. Very well attended event, over 300 or close to 300 attendees. You'll see the main room here and an overflow upstairs as well. We also had an Apex Oracle Aces dinner. So great event. Highly recommend going to conferences and connecting with the community. There are lots more opportunities coming up in the coming weeks and months. In fact, tomorrow is going to be Apex Alpha Adria in Zagreb. So if you're in the area, definitely stop by there. We have a bunch of Apex team members at that conference as well. And then in early May, Apex Connect in Berlin. We have another couple of team members going there. So go to Berlin if you're on the area there. And then in June, we have, well, that's June 25th to 29th, I think. We're going to have Kscope 23 in Aurora, Denver, near Denver in Colorado. And for the first time this year, we're going to have an Apex bootcamp, and a number of Apex development team members are going to be delivering this bootcamp. We're going to Jason Haynes, Vincent, me, Vlad, Tim, Shakib, and Scott. We're all going to be participating in this bootcamp and getting you up to speed on Apex. So if you can make it, this is a great opportunity to learn Apex. It's a 2-day event. You can either sign up for the whole conference or you can sign up for the bootcamp. It's Sunday and Monday. Go to this URL or scan this QR code to get more details. But it's a great opportunity to really learn Apex from the ground up and connect with the Apex development team there. Also, you can learn Apex from the comfort of your home. We have the Apex Foundations training available now for a couple of months. There's a QR code and the link. So it's like about a 3.5 hour training that you can take through Oracle University, LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, Udemy. And there's also going to be a professional developer training coming up soon. I also want to highlight the Apex Development Lifecycle technical paper. This paper came out a couple of months ago, and Steve Munch wrote this paper, and it kind of walks through lots of CI/CD and development lifecycle related topics, overview of the Apex architecture and application artifacts, how you work with your team in parallel, minimizing conflicts, managing history of changes and source code control, testing business logic, user interfaces, measuring code coverage, being able to deploy application archives, and automating a build, test, and deployment processes. So it's a great way to really understand how you can integrate Apex into your development lifecycle and CI/CD pipelines. Early this year, we launched the new forums. The OTN developer community forums have been around for a very long time. Early this year, we really relaunched this forum site based on Apex. So all these forums have now been migrated to the Apex-based platform. There's over 200,000 general DB posts, 126,000 Apex posts, lots of comments. So, and you can go back to all the previous comments and messages. So if you have any questions about Apex or any of the other Oracle technologies, the new forums has been relaunched based on Apex and based on our internal platform called Einstein. Einstein has been around internally for a couple of years, also based on Apex, same technology as the forums. And this is our internal discussion forums where we help each other with all the various products inside Oracle. And then also the Apex Ideas app. So if you have any ideas, any feedback, anything that you'd like us to work on, if you want to vote or review ideas that have been submitted, go to apexoracle.com/ideas. Great way to share your ideas with us and engage with the community. A few stats, apexoracle.com, we just talked about that our public hosted evaluation instance. We now have over 92,000 workspaces there, 191,000 applications, 5 million pages. So it's a very heavily used application platform, used for evaluation, used for education. SQL Workshop Object Browser also very popular on that instance. Lots of students, lots of universities are using apexoracle.com to learn Oracle, to learn SQL, to learn SQL, and of course to learn Apex. And we have a very similar platform internally, apexoraclecorp.com, that is used by pretty much anyone in the company. 6,000 workspaces, 38,000 applications, 1.5 million pages. So every department, every organization inside Oracle is using apexoraclecorp.com to run their business. Also, Apex on Autonomous, we're still a few weeks away from being GA for 23.1. And just like with Apex 22.2, we plan to release Apex on-premise and on ADB on Autonomous on the same date. So good time to start thinking about your upgrade strategy. There's a blog post that I linked down here and a QR code to that blog post that talks about the changes to the upgrade process. So you now have, or ever since 22.2, you have an opt-in, 45-day or 90-day upgrade window. You can apply the upgrade at time of your choosing. You can initiate the upgrade from the Apex UI or using a PL/SQL API. You can use those deferred upgrades to clone your instances, upgrade your clones, test the upgrades, then choose to upgrade. So lots of options for you now to time and organize the upgrade on Autonomous. Take a look at this blog post for all the details. Again, once Apex 23.1 is ready for GA, We're going to make it available for download on OTN and on ADB at the same time. All right, let's talk about Apex 23.1 new features. And I would like to start with the modernized object browser and the link to SQL Developer Web, and then talk about a bunch of other features. I listed some of the high-profile marquee features on this page. We're going to be able to get through everything. Again, there's going to be deep dive sessions over the coming weeks. There's also the new features page on apexoracle.com. All right, the new modernized object browser. So SQL Workshop has been around for a very long time, and we haven't really made too many changes in a while. SQL Workshop also was excluded from our VPATs for accessibility reasons for a very long time. So with this new object browser, we are now addressing these accessibility shortcomings. We now have an accessible object browser that is no longer excluded from the VPAT. And yeah, it delivers a better user experience, much more accessible user experience. It's easier to use object browser now with screen readers. We have a new tree here on the left, and I'll do a short demo here in a moment that allows you to more easily filter across all your database objects. Editing your SQL code is going to be a lot easier. And we have this new landing page that makes it easier to start the create object, create wizards. In addition to updating SQL Workshop and object browser, we are also making it easier to directly link to SQL Developer Web or database actions. Database actions is available on ADB, on Autonomous, but it's also available on your own local instances as part of bots. So you can already go to SQL Developer Web or database actions and use it today. What we've done in Apex 23.1 is to make it easier to directly link from your workspace into SQL Developer Web. SQL Developer Web is a more comprehensive offering, has more functionality, more data modeling, more monitoring functions than our object browser. So if you need the full set of functionality, you can now more easily switch into SQL Developer Web. So let's take a look at that. Right. So this is my local instance here. All right, so this is Apex 23.1. And I guess one of the first things that you may notice is that we switched the builder now to use friendly URLs. That feature has been available for a couple of releases for your own applications. So instead of the old F*P syntax, you now have friendly URL, Apex, Workspace, Home. When you go to SQL Workshop, you'll see SQL Workshop up here, Team Development, Gallery. And as you drill in deeper, go to, say, Create App Wizard, you see friendly URLs up here. Now, what I want to show is the updated SQL Workshop and Object Browser. So going to SQL Workshop, then going to Object Browser. This is a new Object Browser, and so far I don't have any database objects. So let me quickly create a few. So I'm going to go to SQL Workshop, Utilities, Sample Datasets. And let's install the HR data here. So this creates a number of database tables and views. There you go. And now when I'm going back to Object Browser, I can now see all these tables that have been created. You can take a look, for example, at the OEHR employees table. Just like in the previous iteration of Object Browser, you can look at all your columns, data types, primary keys and such. You can take a look at the data. If you're able to edit the data, you can look at the indices, constraints, and so on. You can also look at sample queries based on this table. Look at queries that you can use for charts, queries that you can use for reports. You can directly run them from here and be taken to SQL commands. And you can just jump back right into Object Browser and land at where you came from. You can modify columns, change data types, change lengths, change defaults, and you can now very easily search across all the different objects. So when I just look for, say, I can see all the tables that have orders, the views, and all the indices. When I click on the main nodes over here, I'm being taken back to this landing page, and from here I can create a new table, for example. Table. Make this an ID number, and add another column name. Let's make this a varchar. Then I can preview the SQL and create a new table. Right, so much of the same functionality that we had before in a more modern, more accessible way. And besides accessibility considerations, this also sets us up for database 23C. There are lots of new features coming in the next database that we want to be ready for. For example, there's been JavaScript in the database, so you'll be able to edit JavaScript store procedures, just like you are able to edit store procedures in here today. Pure SQL store procedures. You can also use the wizard to create new packages. And you can include sample code. So if you want to have like a step for creating your own Pure SQL package, spec and bodies, you can go with the sample code, create a package, and then just jump right in here, toggle between your specification and your body, and start working on your code. So this is a very quick, brief overview of the new object browser. Again, it's more modern HTML, quicker, faster, and much more accessible. And it sets up for all the new features coming in 23.c. Now, in addition to Object Browser and SQL Workshop, I mentioned the link to SQL Developer Web. So in this drop-down here, SQL Workshop, you now find a link to SQL Developer Web. When you just click this initially, it tells you that the schema that I have here is not REST enabled. So something that I can easily change. I'm going to click on this link, and I'm going to be taken to the REST workshop. And then here I can register the schema with OAuth. And once I've done this, I'm now able to switch from here directly into SQL Developer Web. Click over here, and then I'm being taken right over. This should actually log you in right away, but it takes you right into SQL Developer Web or database actions. And just like in our object browser, you're able to browse through your table definitions. You can open your table, you can look at the data, you can look at the constraints and so on. And you can run SQL right from here. Now, as I mentioned, database actions is a little bit more than what we have in Object Browser, right? This is kind of like similar functionality, but when you click to the main menu, you're being taken here. And in here, you can run SQL, as I've just shown you. You can also manage your REST APIs. You can build charts on SQL queries. You can go to the data modeler and create your own database models, ER diagrams. You can use Liquibase to apply changes. You can use scheduler, so lots more functionality available to you through database actions. You can manage your database users, and you can also create and manage Apex workspaces. Again, all of this is available on ADB, but also on your own local instances using recent versions of OAuth. Now, if you have more than one schema associated with your workspace, let's do that. Go to Manage Service, make a service request. Let's create a new schema, my new schema. Finish. So now I made a new schema request. I'm going to go to my instance admin. I'm not going to share this, so bear with me for a moment. All right, so now when I go back to SQL Workshop, I went into instance administration and provisioned this new schema. I can now toggle between the different schemas. And when I go to SQL Workshop, SQL Developer Web, I can now choose whether I want to go to OOH or to my new schema, which of course I need to REST enable first. All right, so this is the new object browser and the link to SQL Developer Web. All right, next up, we're going to have template components. Again, all the features that I'm going to talk about next are the main marquee features in 20.1. And for all of these, we're going to have deep dive sessions over the coming weeks. But let's start with template components. Template components are essentially a new plugin type. New plugin types that allows you to essentially create your own reporting regions, if you will. So you can use our template directives and template partials, create new plugins, and all the placeholders and substitution strings in your templates are going to be exposed declaratively through Page Designer, so you can very easily map your templates and placeholders to your underlying data sources. We had similar functionality in the past. If you look at the classic reports and some of our classic report templates where we had like media lists and cards and such, where we had some generic placeholders. It was always a little bit cumbersome to understand how to name your column aliases in your queries to map to those placeholders in your templates. Now with a template component, this is all declarative. It's all available through Page Designer to declaratively map your placeholders to your data sources and to your columns. You can build new region types. You can also create partial components. For example, if you have an interactive report, and in the interactive reports, you want to do things like showing avatars and badges, you can use partial components. And template components are available through the plugins in Apex. So when you go to Share Components plugins, you can create these template components, but they're also available through the Universal Theme. So when you go to Universal Theme, you'll find a number of new template types or template components that kind of re-implement some of the functionality that we had in classic reports through this new plugin type. So template components, you'll find them in themes. You'll also find them standalone as plugins. Then next up, we have PWA push notifications. A couple of releases ago, we started introducing PWA, Progressive Web Applications, in Apex. That allows you to install your Apex apps on your devices, on your desktops, Macs, Windows, as well as your iPhones and iPads and Android devices. And ever since, with each release, we enhanced our PWA functionality and capabilities, being able to tap into the service workers, tap into more native device capabilities like geolocation, being able to see previews and screenshots of the applications that you're installing. And I think one of the biggest pushes now with push notifications, you're now able to configure push notifications that directly being pushed to your devices. Again, could be a desktop device, could be a mobile device. You can subscribe to push notifications. You can manage push notifications to our admin screens. And we also have APIs to manage push notifications in Apex. Page processing improvements. That's, I think, one of my personal favorites. We kind of, for the longest time, had the idea, wouldn't it be nice to just run some of your long-running page processes in the background? Seemed to be easy enough. Turned out to be a much more challenging project, but it's turned out great. So you're now able to define page processes and run them as database jobs in the background. We also have something called execution chains. That's a new process type that you can actually use to chain your processes. So if you have something that is depending on something else, you can put them in a sequence. You can have one run in the background, and once that is completed, kick off the next process. So for example, you have a long-running process, and after that process finishes, you want to send out some emails. You can now use the execution chains to define that logic and define that flow, and have all these processes run in their own sessions in the background. There are APIs and views available for you to monitor these processes. If they run for a long time, maybe you want to put a screen into place somewhere in your application that kind of reports on how far these processes have gotten. So a great way for you to make your apps lots faster and more responsive by just kicking off some of these processes that may take a little bit longer in the background as database jobs. The next up, we have REST source discovery based on Swagger and OpenAPI. So this is a SQL workshop, and one thing that I forgot to mention earlier, in the old object browser, you had the ability to go to a table and then REST enable that table. That is still possible, but it's no longer part of object browser. You now go to RESTful services and then go to enabled objects. And in here, you can create auto REST for an object, such as the M table, and then hit create. And then you now have a REST API enabled on this table. There are also these built-in modules. And the built-in modules, they have the ability to create a Swagger doc. And when you click that, you get something that looks like this. Now, this is a complete catalog or API definition of this HR module that defines all the parameters and all the verbs, all the operations like the get, the put, and the delete, and the updates. And it defines the record structure for your employees. So you'll find all the information that defines this API in this Swagger document. And what is new in Apex 23.1 is that you can now directly reference this Swagger API when creating new REST data sources. So when you go to create REST data sources, you can now put in the endpoint of the API as well as the link to this catalog. And then what happens is that you're not only going to get the get operation, you also get the puts and deletes and everything else in this one create REST data source wizard. So once you have that, you can then start building not just reports or data visualization on your REST APIs, you can also build forms and other operations. And then somewhat related to it, invoke API for REST data sources. So in Apex 22.2, we introduced invoke API for pure SQL APIs. And what that allowed you to do is to more easily map your Apex forms to a store procedure or to a package. You were always able to do that, of course. You were always able to create a pure SQL page process and then reference a store procedure or a package in your database, and then manually reference your page items in that pure SQL call. But what had changed in 22.2 is that you now have the ability to point to a store procedure or point to a procedure or function in your pure SQL package, and then declaratively map the arguments of that procedure directly to your page items. And similar to that, with Apex 23.1, you now have the ability to point to a REST source like employees, and then have the page designer automatically extract all the attributes of that API and map them here in that process, and then declaratively map them to your page items. So similar to interfacing with pure SQL, in Apex 23.1, you now have a declarative way to interface with REST APIs for puts and deletes and updates. We have a number of general builder improvements. You've already seen the friendly URLs at the beginning of my demo. And this is kind of like the first step for us to actually enable PWAs for the builder as well. That's not available in 23.1 yet. In 23.1, you just have the friendly URLs, but it is our plan in an upcoming release to PWA enable the builder, which then allows you to essentially install the builder on your device, on your Mac, on your Windows. It'll just show up in your menu. It'll cache a bunch of JavaScript and CSS. It will run faster. So this is a step into that direction. You now have friendly URLs in the builder, SQL workshop, team development, and so on. We also added property graph support. Property graphs are a new feature coming with database 23c. And with Apex 23.1, you're now able to use to reference property graphs in our wizards, build shared LOVs, automation, search configurations directly on property graphs using PQL. Another database feature is application continuity. And what that means for Apex is that we now have an option to have the commit of your page submissions happen at the very end. Today, you may have a whole bunch of commits happening throughout your page submission. In the future, this will be defaulted to one commit at the very end of your submission. We added the ability to copy pages to the create page wizard. We were always able to copy pages, of course. With this, it's just easier to copy pages directly from this wizard. The idea is, or what a lot of our customers do, is that they have like some master applications with certain UI patterns that they just want to copy from. So you can start our create page wizard, point to another application and copy pages from there, and do all of this directly from this wizard. A few other things that make your life easier: save and run from code editor. So if you're a page designer, if you're editing your code, your pure SQL regions, your report sources, you can now directly save and run, save your changes, and directly run your page. Context-sensitive help, making it easier to jump into the right places in our documentation. And then we also increased the number of attributes in our plugins to 25, item plugins 25 from 15. Next up, we have some improvements to Apex administration. The admin digest is something that you'll find in instant administration. So if you're running a larger instance like we do for apexoracle.com or apexoraclecorp.com, there's now admin digest, lots of charts and metrics that you can use to monitor the health of your instances, of your workspaces, on your schemas, see what kind of jobs are running, look at top workspaces, top apps, top users, and just kind of take a closer look at what's going on your instance. That's a very critical functionality if you're running large instances. Again, we have like 92,000 workspaces on apexoracle.com and 6,000 on apexoraclecorp.com. So this is very helpful for us to manage these instances. There's also auto provisioning restrictions. We can now define email patterns, like, for example, on apexoracle.com, our public site. We don't allow Oracle employees to sign up with their oracle.com email addresses. They're supposed to use Oracle Corp, apexoraclecorp.com instead. So using this technique, we can have certain patterns defined to block certain emails. And then there's also a new Apex application admin API. All right, we already touched on the new template components, and the theme now ships with template components directly as part of the theme. There are template components for avatars, badges, comments, content row, media lists, and timeline. And many of these were already available in some form as part of classic repo templates. The difference now being that these new template components are a lot more declarative, lots easier to use. You just pick your data source and then you map your columns to the attributes in your template components. We improved the fidelity of your icons. So when you're creating PWAs, you have the option to create icons, right? You can upload your icons, your own images, and they show up in different places. When you install the PWAs on your desktop or on your device, they show up in your home screen, they show up in your tabs in your browser. So improved fidelity for these icons, and also enhancements to the region display selectors. You can now use icons next to your region display selector tabs. Right, then for Theme Roller, you're now able to directly export your themes and import your themes from Theme Roller using the Actions menu. We improved performance overall for collapsible and region display selector regions. They render faster with less flickering. And there have been a bunch of updates to our templates, especially hero and title bar templates. You now have the ability to have up arrows in a position of your choosing to navigate around your app. Then the approvals component, with each release, we're enhancing the approvals component. It's been around now for 2 or 3 releases. It's our first part of our longer-term workflow journey. We introduced the full approvals component a few releases back. Now with this release, we're adding the due date item and API to manage the due date parameter. In upcoming releases, you'll see our new full workflow engine come in, but that's still a little bit away. So 23.1, we're adding these new options to the approvals component. All right, some additional enhancements. We continue to work on moving our item widgets, item types to web components. And with this release, we updated the old Oracle Jet-based color picker to a new color picker that's used in, for example, Theme Roller, Page Designer, in interactive reports, interactive grids when you're highlighting. So this is now our own implementation of the color picker. We generally move away from the Jet item types. We continue using Oracle Jet charts, of course, but we had a number of item types that were based on Oracle Jet that we are replacing with our own implementations. And one of the reasons behind that is that Oracle Jet is very much using Redwood only. And with Apex, you want to be able to use your own themes and theme styles. So we wanted to have the ability to really style all these item types. And of course, the other part of this is that we're moving to web components. So you'll see more item types move to web components in the future. I already mentioned the REST enabling of database objects that has moved from the old object browser into the REST workshop now. And then there have been a number of accessibility improvements. Right, and a few more updates. Minimum database for Apex 23.1 is now 19C. So if you're installing or if you want to upgrade to Apex 23.1, it's now 19C or later. So it could be 23C, Enterprise Edition, Standard Edition, Database 23 free. But the minimum version of Apex is for Apex is now database 19C. And then we're also moving to TinyMCE for our rich text editor. The rich text editor in Apex has been using CK editor for a number of releases. We are moving away from CK editor. Oracle as a whole is moving away from CK Editor due to accessibility concerns. And in Apex 23.1, you still find both. You're creating new rich text editors, will be TinyMCE, but your current CK Editor-based rich text editors will continue to work. You'll still be able to create new ones. But in the future, in the next release, we want to migrate over to TinyMCE, and then by Apex 24.1 at the latest, we'll remove rich text editor based on CK Editor, and all your rich text editors will be migrated to TinyMCE. And then with each release of Apex, we always upgrade our JavaScript libraries. We have a number of open source libraries included with Apex, including OracleJet, Full Calendar, Mark.js, Purify, CK Editor, Cursor, CSSO, Cropper, MapLibre. So all of these are always updated to the latest releases. And with that, I'm done with my brief overview, and I want to open it up for any questions. Right. So I haven't looked at the QAs, but if any one of our PMs here on the call has any questions that you want to bring up. Good. I guess all questions were answered in the QA. We're going to give another minute here. Yeah, so I'm just looking at the open questions here. So there's a question about JavaScript and single commands. Yes, so if you're using 21C, 23C, like the JavaScript or MLE functionality is enabled for your page processes, for stock procedures packages, so you can run JavaScript, but you need a database that supports it. On my local instance here, I have 19C. There's a question about why move to TinyMCE. That was mainly driven by accessibility concerns with regards to CK Editor. So Oracle as a whole has decided to move away from CK Editor. Same with other products in Oracle, and to adopt TinyMCE instead. And just looking at some of the other questions here. Well, there was a whole bunch answered, so we'll make the Q&A available afterwards. There's a question about support for 23.c features. Yes, we do have plans. In particular, Boolean is something that we're looking at for future release for Apex. There's also duality views and a bunch of other developer-centric, developer-focused features coming with database 23c. So in coming releases of Apex, you'll see more of these features being supported in Apex. All right. Any other questions you guys want to share?
Mark, thanks so much for a great session. This has been hugely informative for everyone. We've had such a huge turnout today. It's been great. We lost a bunch of people, I think, but that's okay. Are there any questions that we can answer live that are still remaining to the rest of the team? I've been trying to keep up, but we have over almost 80 questions that were answered. I'm not even sure what's left open at this point. But we don't have any time to demo anything specifically today. I saw there was a question about doing something with a push notification configuration. Vincent's going to be doing that in one of our sessions soon. There's just going to be a lot of material coming out that we're going to publish to help everyone get jump started with a lot of these new features. There will be blogs and videos. If you go to our YouTube channel, you're going to see several new videos that demonstrate some of these features. And of course, you can go to apex.oracle.com today and try out 23.1 yourself and play with any of the features with your existing workspace. Let's see if we have any other questions we can answer. Any marked live? No, I guess at this point, I mean, a lot to take in, a lot to experiment with. I think we'll go ahead and give everyone a few moments to finish typing their answers. If anyone wants to join me on camera or mic to interact with some of these answers or questions, I'd be happy to entertain that. Remember, we're going to have a part 2, a part 3, and a part 4 of Apex 23.1 new features coming up over the next several weeks. So stay tuned for more on that. Pablo asks, how easy is it to upgrade to 23.1? Well, when it becomes generally available for download on-prem, it's pretty easy. You just install it, right? In OCI on Oracle Cloud for all the different Apex services, that's going to be upgraded automatically as part of the process. In terms of any new features that you need to revisit, like the CK editor to TinyMCE, that's going to require some manual intervention if you want to take advantage of different features of TinyMCE. There is a utility that's supposed to help upgrade with that, but we haven't had a chance to really experiment with that a whole lot. but we're going to probably have a blog or something to that effect to describe that process. There is the new color picker. Some of those things are going to require some developer intervention if you have some customizations or any kind of things that are a little not out of the box. The same thing went from 22.2 with regards to the calendar component. Might need a little bit of, TLC depending on how you use it in your applications, but a lot of that stuff is pretty straightforward. And of course, with every upgrade, you need to upgrade your a copy of Universal Theme in each of your apps to make sure you have the latest, greatest fixes and features of Universal Theme applied to your apps. I'm looking to see what else we can add. In your plan, you are not, someone's asking if there's gonna be a plan to have a GUI to install Apex. I mean, even Oracle database itself doesn't have a GUI unless you're in Oracle Cloud, right? So on-prem, I think it's gonna stay command line. I mean, I'm just speaking from my experience, it's always been that way. Same thing with database and even ORDs for that matter. No GUI. The command line stuff's pretty simple. I mean, for most people, it requires reading the instructions and documentation. I mean, I've been there too, learning how to install Oracle database for the first time and Apex. We even have VMs. We ourselves want to upgrade to the latest and greatest version of Apex. And I've always got to read the docs to learn how to do an ORDs validate and do all those kinds of things with copying the images over. So it's not that big of a learning curve, but I feel your pain. It would be nice if there's a GUI of some sort, but obviously that would require a lot more to maintain. I think it works pretty well right now, and everyone's going to move to cloud someday, right? So soon that won't even be a necessary issue. Okay, what else we got here? Monica's putting a lot of good links for the next office hours session in the chat. We did supply a lot of links in the chat having to do with other content and other material available right now. What else can we answer here? So almost everything's answered. I think at this particular time, we're about 10 minutes under the hour. We'll give you another 10 minutes back to your day. Thank you again for joining us. And once again, Mark, thanks for an excellent presentation on all these new features of the Apex 23.1. It's always fantastic. And it's great to see you again and have you part of all these office hours and these sessions with everyone. Again, Mark started out as being one of my biggest mentors in Apex, and I'm just so happy to be part of this team and this greater team. And thank you to everyone who helped answer these questions today in the Q&A. It's been pretty monumental. We have almost 100 questions that were answered in the Q&A section, and this has just been an exciting time. So with all that, till next time, everyone.
Jason.
Thank you.